My wife was not supposed to have a child.
Oh, God.
Welcome to the Flick Lab. I'm Karri, a Finn living in Malaga, Spain.
And I'm Henrik, Finn, living in Jämsänkoski, Finland.
Where?
Precisely there. Even Finns don't know where the fuck Jämsänkoski is.
And I'm Zach, an American living in Boston.
Zach, this is your second episode. You're the new member of the podcast.
It
Good to
is.
have you here.
I'm no
again.
longer a virgin, so this is now my second time. So we don't have to be quite as gentle.
Yeah, well, congratulations to you. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
A bi-weekly podcast is what we're doing here, focusing on international cinema. Today's focus will be on the films The Ring, Ringu, and Ring. So, Japanese, Korean, and the American version of The Ring horror film.
Yeah, also known as The Ring, and The Ring virus.
Ring, ring, ring. Why don't you give me a call?
That was a good one.
Yeah, I'll give you props for that.
It was quite the curse, though, to go through all of these Ring-related videotapes.
Oh shit,
But,
was it ever? A word of the wise to anyone who dreams on making a Japanese horror-themed film podcast someday. Never marathon the 3 first Ring movies back to back.
Oh god, a little bit more about that soon. Oh yeah, Henrik, apart from your Belgian porn collection, how's your music video editing going?
Well, let's just say at this point of the process, I'm really hoping, like I'm putting my prayers and hopes on the possibility that I myself might land a cursed VHS tape.
Alright, so these 3 versions. Well, it all started with Koji Suzuki, who wrote the original novel Ringu. And the film Ringu is a film that kind of opened the floodgates for a new era of horror and J-horror. And if it didn't outright invent this long black-haired girl in white costume, it certainly popularized this trope for several years to come.
At least for the Western audiences, the maiden with a long black hair is nothing new to the Japanese audience. In fact, it's fair to say that it's some sort of a trope or maybe even a gimmick in Japanese horror stories. But it's not a reality that perhaps it showcases to you extremely clearly if you are part of the Western audience space. And since we are talking about
Popularizing?
I just can't fucking twist my tongue to form the word right now. But since we are talking about Asian horror kind of coming to contact with the Western audiences, another major part that is also played at here would be the Verbinski's remake of Ringu, which on its own terms opened the floodgates for the Hollywood Japanese horror film remakes.
Yeah, a few words about the Japanese background from my end. One of the most notable franchises alongside this is the copy trope of Ju-on, or what I do consider as the most famous, perhaps, copy of the Ring franchise, aka The Grudge, which is about a curse in a haunted house. And similarly, Ju-on has an incredible amount of 14 films in this series, when you include the 4 American ones, yes. And there's one short film that started it all.
Yeah, and
I didn't even mention the novels yet, and the comics, and the video game, and the TV series.
yeah, and the Netflix series, and like Ju-on also is basically everywhere.
And in many ways, I consider it a sister piece, or And it has this similarly massive universe of films.
It kind of I would say it's a fair assessment to say that Yuon is a sister piece. I don't know about the shared universe because Japanese horror, if it's nothing if not full of, oh my god, there is a location or thing that has a curse and a dark-haired maiden tied to that curse. Like we have had in Japanese horror, we have had haunted skyscraper apartments. We have had haunted photographs. We have had haunted basically whatever.
And what is this new film where actually Sadako and the antagonist from Ju-on take on each other?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a whole another topic. Basically, how the two franchises have transformed from the original films or the original stepping stone movie of those franchises.
So the whole thing started in 1991 for The Rings. And so far there are 6 novels that has been released. In 1995 came out the first movie, the TV movie, Ringu Kansenban. And in 1998 came out the theatrically released films Ringu and Rasen, apparently released at the exact same time in the Japanese market, in the theaters. Whereas Ringu got a lot of positive feedback and became a hit, at least as soon as The Ring popularized it to the Americans and the rest of the world. Rasen was said to be a extremely lackluster follow-up for the Ringu story, so much so that its storyline was cast aside in favor of Ringu 2, which completely ignores Rasen.
Yeah, from these I've never actually seen the very first filmatization. The Rasen or Ring Gazenban. You know, you picked the name. But I have seen the kind of, I guess, original trilogy and also the American adaptations and some of the later entries of the Japanese side of the franchise.
Yeah, when it comes to the TV movie that started the filmatizations, they say that it's the closest to the original Ringu novel, and it takes its time to tell the full story, and it has a lot of storytelling and exposition, and it's very, of course, low budget, has problems. It's not mighty interesting, but it's not completely terrible either for a TV movie, and it could be said that the acting is the best side of that adaptation. So yeah, if you're into Ring movies, then maybe give it a go.
As someone who has not seen it, I can very well believe that it might be the best possible adaptation that you can get from the source novel if you really, truly plan to stay true to the original source novel.
And some disclaimer for this episode: it's of course a bit unfair always to compare films that are taken from different cultures, and there is one that is evidently a small budget film, and then the other one had a massive Hollywood engine behind it. When I checked the IMDb's box office mojo, it says that The Ring had a budget of 48 million USD, and even for a horror flick, this is quite a unfathomable amount of money for a horror film.
That's a shit ton of money. And that's in $2002.
And if you look at the horror films that are made now, well, the trend is now to make it for cheap and then have a big turnover. And it seems to be working for production houses such as Blumhouse, as we have discussed in the Halloween episodes. But yeah, I think for any horror movie, this is pretty huge. And it went on to pull 249 million in the box office worldwide. For the Japanese one, it is, as usual, quite hard to find any complete statistics. We would also have to consider the home video sales revenue after the Ring American version was released. And I don't have those statistics, so... Okay, where do we want to start? With the original, or so-called original?
Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how much we have to stick to any kind of a chronological order when talking about these films, because I'm fairly confident that as this episode will go on, the line between what film we are talking about and what film we are trying to remember most specifically, it starts to get really blurry.
It does, and maybe I could start saying some words about the groundedness of the 1998 Japanese version. So obviously it's more grounded than the American counterpart. It feels more realistic to a point. And I have to say to a point because, for example, in Ringu you have this carefree attitude towards supernatural abilities in a way that you just casually might go that, oh, I have those supernatural powers too. So, I know where Sadako is coming from, the main antagonist. So we just suddenly realized that the father of the kid in the story apparently has supernatural powers. Tells it outright on the beach. Oh, hi, I'm part of the family too, of weirdos.
Yeah, which also means that the kid will have supernatural powers, and eventually, basically everybody has some sort of psychics except the mom.
Yeah, otherwise I would say Ringu is more toned down, stripped down, and not always to its benefit. Oh boy, I have a couple of notes on that.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Close ups and reaction shots. So, it's usual for Japanese films of this era that there are very limited close ups. And here we have Nakata Hideo-san, the director. He seems to have a great level of dislike for close ups. Maybe it is just cultural and or budget or but it cannot explain everything. It is just also the prevailing style of the late 90s and early 90s. My god, it doesn't look good now 20 years on. Sometimes I wonder, what did I see really visually in these films? They can look so monotone. Whether it's due to the common cultural style or not, I don't know. The fact is that there's there's a lack of close-ups or proper reaction shots. The film this way keeps the observer, the audience, at a distance. And for me, the audience engagement suffers as a consequence of this.
Yeah.
Did you notice the same thing, that you get much closer and you get tracking shots, you get dollying, you get all this kind of a dynamic thing that you usually expect from a horror movie in the remake, American remake.
Basically, the camera fucking moves in the American remake.
It does.
That's what happens. It's a tremendous amount of Steadicam in the original, and just the camera staying put in just in one angle, and basically one clear example of this in my opinion in Ringu is the moment when our main hero or heroine has seen Reiko has first time seen the tape, and she panics in the room and rushes out the room, runs off camera, and then remembers that wait a second, she still is gonna need the tape, the physical tape, and runs back to get it from the VHS player. And it's something like 30 seconds simply from one angle shot. Like certainly, yeah. It's one shot take, and that always means that it's
Artsy.
masterclass, artsy masterclass cinema, and you can't criticize it because one shot. But I was actually when Verbinski took the reins and jumped into the situation, I was kind of happy when the camera actually started to move.
Yeah, I have to be really honest about this. And there's a lot of these Japanese fanboys here that defend Ringu at all costs over the American remake. I think I saw the American version first, then I saw the original. I felt that, of course, the Japanese is gonna be a better one. I was maybe going with this mood into the film, then I watched it. I was like, well, yeah, some things are maybe better here, and it wasn't that kind of an overwhelming sensation of, oh my god, this is so much better and so much creepier, and even less so now.
I kind of have the similar history, even though different experience with Ringu. I too originally saw the American remake first, and then went and checked out the Japanese original, feeling very confident that this will be a hell of a lot better than the American one. And to me, yeah, when I originally saw it for the first time, Ringu really was something else. And I was like, oh my god. To me, it was perhaps my first Japanese horror films that I personally checked out. And to me, it was like, oh my god, I have just found this hidden well of great horror films, and I will never watch anything else except this Japanese stuff. But
The hidden well, pun intended.
pun very much intended, but I didn't have the experience that I thought I would have, in which I would come to kind of hate the American one and start to see it as the lackluster version. I more or less just, found myself loving both versions. And now that I have 3 years of hardcore film podcasting under my belt, and I revisited Ringu, I suddenly find myself that the film no longer holds the same effect on me that it once had. And I'm suspecting very much that is the amount of Japanese horrors that I have consumed over the years. And much like all those years back, when Ringu and Japanese horror felt somehow radical and different, since I have become familiar and stagnated with American style horror movies, now I'm kind of getting the same experience also with Japanese horror films.
Yeah, it's weird how it works like that. A little bit of a tangent on that. I went to the hellhole known as YouTube, and I just happened to see the Chris Stuckman review of the original Ringu he was going through at the time, like some of the sequels and the originals. And he basically praised it through the roof and was completely Stuckmanized with the film, as they say. Wow, that was surprising from a guy who has done a lot of reviewing.
That's surprising, yeah, because I usually line up pretty well with him, and
Right.
I would not line up with him on this. Yeah, I have to say, I was also surprised. So I'd seen the original when it came out in theaters in 2001, 2002, the original American remake, but had never seen the original Ringu until just last week. And I was going into this knowing that you had this and this slew of J-horror films that was sort of made around the same time that really inspired a lot of these American remakes, thinking, oh, here we go, now we're going to get the real deal. And yeah, was equally sort of let down by the lack of impact it had on me, and the lack of sort of staying power it had with me. Whereas some of the images and some of the thoughts from the American version would stay with me for the next 24, 36, 48 hours. I didn't get the same thing from the original Japanese version. And to go back to your point about close-ups, I don't know if that's a mistake from the director or cinematographer, from maybe an amateur side of things, or maybe they were still new at this and trying to get used to this, or if this was purposeful because the actors didn't have the chops to sort of bring it. Because to me that's where you sell the performance. It's where you sell the emotional impact, is in the face of your actors. And if you can't bring the camera close so we can see that the emotional toll that it's taking on your cast, then we can't experience that same emotional toll. So I don't know where that fell through, but I think it did fall through.
Probably a couple of reasons. First of all, as noted, this is not to beat the dead horse, but I am It's a low budget film, and if you shoot at a minimal amount of angles your scene, then you're gonna
It's cheaper.
probably save money, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably a big reason. But then again, it's just kind of bizarre. Look at the Reiko character go to the TV set and then seeing the video for the first time. Then she gets the phone call. And this is at the moment when kind of the camera angle started to really piss me off. When she goes to the phone, we don't get the reaction shot. We get the reaction. It's somewhere there. You have to kind of go a little bit closer to the monitor. Yeah, there's some performance there, but we're not getting a close-up. Then the dialogue deliveries, if I could say a little bit about that, these are pretty monotone, and it's not uncommon for Japanese films or Asian films necessarily. But let's try to set aside the topic of Japanese conservatism in performance, if you will. The deliveries are just humdrum. They're like, and the lead isn't really up to the chops in this performance in some way, because I feel that she's just this kind of a, sorry, but some kind of a whispering doll, going like, Yoichi, Yoichi, where are you? And so,
Wow, that was stirring, Karri, stirring. I have chills. Chills.
what about the script? There are interesting moments that are fortunately cut out of from the American version. When they go recheck the video where they have the mirrors and Reiko goes, from this angle the cameraman should be visible. But not necessarily. Come on. You just tilt the camera to a little bit to the other side. And
I think they say that in the American version as well. Something about the
they?
camera angle. I think the ex-husband says it.
Yeah, they make the camera angle comment.
Okay, I was sleeping.
I don't
at
think
that moment.
they stay on it as long, but I think he just says, "Oh, look, this is funny because of the way the mirror is angled. You should be able to see the camera, but you can't." And I think that's it. Then they move on.
Yeah. The American version does make the note on that, but it, as Zach mentioned, moves on it very quickly and does not linger on that point.
Thank goodness. What was that plot point about the guy not getting the phone call after watching the video in the Japanese version? It happens in the American version. They don't pick it up, but it doesn't happen at all in the Japanese. Maybe Sadako wasn't up to the mood of calling people that day. I'm
It was
confused.
her day off.
Right.
If I remember correctly, it was supposed to be because she's supposed to give the phone call, the original phone call, only if you check the film, the tape in the location where she was originally killed.
Okay.
She can only call locally. She can't call long distance because that's like an
Do you
extra
know how-
charge.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Do you know how much let's?
I mean, this is
note that.
1998. We didn't have like national cell service.
Well, yeah, we didn't have WhatsApp for Sadako.
Yeah.
But also the soundtrack falls flat for me. Well, DreamWorks seems to have re-released the Ringu. Was that then the mass release of Ringu to the Western audiences, so to speak? I'm not sure. But overall, the audio still stays flat. Maybe when DreamWorks took this under its wings, the shocking moments have gotten a little bit of more channels to it, you know. But then I can't help but to kind of go every time there's this stock whacking noise when Sadako drops to the well. And the performance is also off. You know, the guy is kind of struggling there, loses his balance, and it's all kinds of funny. They can obviously stand in the well, so it's not that deep. So maybe take a few dips and try to look for the body. And why do this bucket stuff at all?
Yeah, but the film has to have a climax, like epic climax of some sort.
Yeah.
And the story does not give you anything else to work with except, the epic race against the time. Can you drain the well?
Yeah, go faster. The sun is about to rise and you're gonna die.
It's not like in those dumb American films where you have car chases or bomb is gonna go off or something else. No. This is smart Japanese, nuanced filmmaking where you have to train the well in time. The clock is ticking.
Thank goodness. Japanese always get it right.
I do. I like the fact that in the American version she gets knocked into the well as opposed to making a conscious decision to go down there. I think that's a better plot device for getting someone down there. Of she gets pushed in, not pushed, but knocked in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. Then there's the color space. It's dull. And there's no foreboding element about it. That there is nothing really about it. Many of these films of the era from Japan, maybe ones from South Korea, from the region, they just look boring color-wise. I don't know what that is. Yeah.
The most common defense is that it's just because the Asian filmmakers want to utilize as much natural light and the natural the effect of natural light on natural colors as humanly possible. So therefore they refuse to color the film footage.
And it totally shows. And the way that the lighting is done, yeah, same thing. You know, the sets are barely lit. And so the camera work feels TV-ish to an extent that it can be read as a stylistic choice for realism. Yeah, but it's now when you look at it in retrospect, it's as uninteresting to look at as it was 20 years ago when I first saw Ringu and other Japanese horrors of the era. It's like it's made to look as exciting as a Sunday evening dishwash.
I like that description.
Yeah. So about the close-ups, still we can go back, 80 years. Griffith used close-up like 90 years prior. I wouldn't be thinking that I would be talking about Griffith again in this podcast, but Griffith...
Especially in positive note, but here we go again.
Oh boy. But I don't see why it's so unimaginable for this film to... Why it wants to break the rules, the basic rules of attention build-up. Fixed angles that linger on for minutes, and it just keep me at a distance. It's poorly composed even. Maybe it's so natural that it's poor.
And I don't know how much you can actually defend Nakata here. Like, certainly you can make the case. This is the third film that the dude has under his belt as a director. So, to some extent, you can, of course, make the argument about, still somewhat building up director at work. But then again, at the same time, Nakata himself, before he became a director, he had working experience from working on the Japanese Pinku films, the erotic story-based softcore pornish movies. Very much, ladies in lingerie and some soft sex scenes tied together by a revenge plot type of movies. And you kind of would think that having the experience on the Pinku market would kind of give Nakata more experience on precisely on close-ups and on camera movement, and perhaps even in coloring your film and using systematic lighting and other these tricks. Because if you just take a long shot and with camera staying in one place and just let the film run, you can't really make an erotic scene. So the Pinku films kind of have to utilize a different type of cinematography tricks just for, in sake of having your erotics in your erotic thriller films.
I was wondering about the visual style, the visual look of it. I liked how you described it, how it's...
Yeah, it's like Sunday evening dishwash.
Yeah. I think in the American version, there's obviously that sort of green color correction, color grading that they've done, and it's very cloudy all the time. It's very rainy, and that's I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg here. If it was they set the film in Seattle, Washington, which is in the Pacific Northwest of the states, which is always very overcast and very rainy.
Mm.
Did they set it there so they could make the film look that way, or is it because they set it there they were like, oh well, I guess we have to make the film also look this way?
Well, not
Maybe that's part of the sort of mood they were going for. And I don't know if there's something with the the Aizu or the Izu Peninsula where Ringu is set. Is there sort of a similar climate in the same place that always gives it that sort of dank, damp sort of a look?
that would make sense.
Because if so, then maybe that's what they were trying to repeat was we want to give it sort of that same overcast feeling.
Yeah, that's highly likely. And in all of the movies, the island seems to be in a very cloudy, rainy location. So could be. I don't want to speculate on behalf of Verbinski, but yeah.
Hmm.
Visual effects wise, I also have a beef with that. Like, I'm not giving slack to this. That the film, it's using a frame with inverted colors for Christ's sake in its opening climax. Like really, this effect that was available to everyone who had consumer camcorders at the end of the 90s. It just looks really cheap.
Yeah, I think we keep coming back to this idea of it just being done very cheap. And in some ways, I can respect a horror film that's made for cheap, done for cheap, but you're still producing something that's of quality because you want it to have a certain look. But this, sadly, I think this it's just done cheaply. It's just ineffective.
Yeah, in a way, it has this sort of a special, its own world going, which feels at the same time kind of realistic, boring, and in some sense disturbing. But The Ring, the American version, I feel that improves on all of the things that I've been talking on. It doesn't do everything perfectly, nope.
No.
And this whole green filter effect that they have, we have talked about color correction before in this podcast. Spectre, my god, that's one of the recent examples. That Spectre, which you have to look through this BIS filter, as the fans like to call it. And well, here I guess it's some kind of a Matrix hangover, or not sure, but it makes the film look a little bit too otherworldly and kind of distanced from reality because everything is green. It's not a huge problem for me, but definitely noticeable.
Interesting that you say it could be a Matrix hangover. I'd never thought about that, but this is in the aftermath of the Matrix, and very well could be.
Yeah, and The Ring, it might be the only movie that makes water look disturbing for me. It just happens to do that. You look at a glass of water and like, ooh, what the hell is that? Oof, don't want to go near it.
Mm.
Yeah, this paints kind of a sickly feel to the world. One kind of improvement is that the Ring American removes the plot element of investigating the dead couple in the car, which is in several versions, adaptations, film adaptations. And it just goes straight to the point, investigating the lady friend's daughter who has died, and skips all the crap.
Altogether, I felt that the whole investigative element was stronger in the American film. The original, to my liking, it too heavily leaned on the idea of the psychics and the husband being a psychic. And basically, every single major plot point and confirmation of major plot points being drawn through some type of form of psychic connection into I don't know, some black void. Like in Ringu, you basically you have a lot of the same beats as in Verbinski's remake. Surprise, surprise. But where in Verbinski's film, for example, the husband originally sees the film and does not believe the whole cursed movie business until he himself notices that he now looks smudgy in all photographs and surveillance camera footage. In Ringu, the husband is, of course, cynical towards the idea of a cursed videotape, and then goes into Reiko's apartment and immediately is hit by psychic waves or something like that, and deduces that no, the curse must be real. The whole when they have to figure out exactly what is the whole backstory with Sadako, and they travel to the island to talk with her dad, or the daughter or the grandfather. That whole thing eventually, once again, that plot point is reached through a psychic connection. Husband grabs the grandpa's hand and gets hit by a psychic flashback. So now that's confirmed. Then when they finally reach the well at the end of Ringu, and there's a for a moment there's the question: are they in correct location? Is this really where Sadako has been hidden, or where her corpse lays? And they just push the lid of the well just an inch, and immediately the husband is being hit by the psychics once again, and that's a confirmation that yes, this is the right spot, and Sadako is at the bottom of the well. And I kinda was disappointed by the film constantly taking this. No, the dad's a psychic, and we gain confirmation through his powers. And I did like the fact that Verbinski played more with the idea of the main lady of that version, Rachel, being an investigative journalist and doing some goddamn investigating. And even the fact that in Verbinski's version, the duo actually split up, so that Rachel goes to Samara's stepdad's house to squeeze information out of him, while the ex-husband breaks into the archives of the mental health facility. And they gotta try to maximize the effort, how much investigating they can do.
I like that, and I like the fact that the Aiden's father is highly skeptical towards the video, whereas in the Japanese version, yeah, it doesn't take too long until he believes all of it. And where the Korean version goes and has a massive wasted opportunity is that the other main star, this guy, this doctor, he is first skeptical. He's a doctor, so it would have been nice if the guy would have taken this science-based outlook through and throughout the movie, and then maybe only when he's about to face Sadako and kick the dust, bite the dust, whatever, then that would have been kind of the moment when we see his horrified face, that actually this came to be, and science didn't help me much here. It could have been this kind of a Mulder-Scully split between the characters. But now that is not there, there's nothing really going on between them except that the guy comes off as a sexual predator.
Well, the dude was hinted to be a rapist in the book. Or at least the guy himself makes the notion that he would have raped some ladies before the story proper starts. The film The Ring Virus thankfully does not go down this plotline, but there are nuances. There are moments where the book doctor's possible background, suspected background as a rapist, kind of also seeps into the film.
Yeah, it is a film that tries to also be quite faithful to the novel.
It tries and it tries not. The Ring Virus is kind of curious oddity, in the sense that yeah, it boasts the claim that it's going to be respectful and follow the novel instead of the previously done Japanese film version. of the story. But at the same time, there are major things that the ring virus also kind of just left off from the story and instead opts out taking the solutions made by the Japanese film version. One such, well, the biggest example of this is the whole fact that, well, Sadako or Ring Virus's version of Sadako once again, and or her vengeful spirit is the culprit of all the deaths. That's not the case from the original story. Originally, the famous killer, in the ring, was supposed to be a self-conscious strain of tuberculosis virus that had psychic powers. That's your killer, the original killer.
See?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. See, the thing goes in the original story that Sadako, if I remember correctly, from the book, there's some time when I read it. Sadako suffers a nervous breakdown and is confined in a mental health clinic where her doctor rapes her and finds out that Sadako has both the coochie and the balls, which is kind of a shocker, and decides to axe the bitch and drop her into the well, where Sadako suffers for X number of days, building the grudge against basically everyone. Now, unbeknownst to her doctor, the doctor also happened to have tuberculosis, and through the act of rape, Sadako also gets the virus. And because Sadako is psychic, somehow in her deep-welled hatred, her psychic powers and the tuberculosis virus, they kind of come together, and the virus becomes conscious and a living, thinking thing, and it also inherits Sadako's psychic powers. Basically, the whole cursed VHS tape is created by the tuberculosis virus.
Sounds pretty funny when you speak it out loud.
Oh, and it just
Wow.
gets better, like in the sequels. In the sequel book, it's no longer the threat. No longer is the cursed videotape. Now it's a cursed report made out of Sadako's case. The killer is a cursed stack of white piece of paper.
One note about the TV movie Kansenban. You said that in the novel the rape actually happens.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, in the Kansenban there's a guy next to a well with Sadako, and the guy basically is telling to Sadako how much he loves her while he's groping her tits, and then Sadako is kind of like, maybe this is not cool, and well, I'll let you play with me anyway, and then the guy goes to grope in between the legs and finds something that he is not pleased with and is shocked, and then Sadako goes like, oh, you're all the same, and after this there's a bit of a scuffle, and of course accidentally, at least half accidentally, Sadako falls into the well.
Yeah, the ring virus plays this same plot point with alterations. In the South Korean remake, the rape, a possible rape happens. There's sex, and you kind of can't be 100% certain if it's consensual or not. Following the groping, this is all done by a patient in the same clinic where Sadako works as a nurse, and not by a doctor. And following the groping, well, the possible alleged rapist strangles Sadako and pushes her down the well.
Right.
Since we've now brought it up, I find it interesting that the fact that Sadako is intersex in seemingly the original novel and in the Korean version, but not in the American remake. And I don't think if it's mentioned, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, is it mentioned in any of the other sequels? Any of the other American sequels? I don't believe it is.
No.
No.
I wonder what the thought process is behind taking a pretty significant character trait and removing that.
I think it would have been there to just muddy the waters further. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but quite of an unexpected plot twist when I saw the TV version.
Well, it once again, it's hard to say if removing the intersex plot point from the story is what resulted into this, or would this have still happened even if all the film versions would have had the intersex in them. But what the removal of the whole intersex plot point seems to have caused or made possible for the film versions is that they remove the aspect of Sadako being so much of a victim early on in the story, or during the moment when she's originally pushed into the well. Both the Japanese and especially Verbinski's American version make the plot point that Sadako was kind of just a huge bitch from the day one.
Yeah.
Like she was, profoundly evil character even before she was killed off originally.
And in
And
at least the Ring American and Ringu, you never get a glimpse of why she was pushed into the well, right? And in the American version, the stepmother, right? She just says that you were everything I always wanted and pushes her to the well, just raising more questions about the background. If you accept the given background in Ring 2 and the third part of the American series, well, there you have more answers.
yeah, in the American remake, they do make a point that Sadako or Samara, as she is to Verbinski, she put images into basically everybody's head. Apparently shocking and harmful images. She used her psychic abilities to basically torment her parents. And that would have been the reason why the mother eventually would have killed her off and dropped her down the well. Why
Yeah.
Samara felt that she had to do this, well, that's never explained, except in that one flashback in the Insanitarium where Samara just states that she doesn't want to hurt anyone, but she wants to hurt everybody, and it's never gonna stop.
She never sleeps.
She never sleeps.
Precisely that.
Precisely that.
Apparently, neither did her parents.
I think in the Verbinski version, I think there is a quick mention when Rachel goes to see the doctor on the island, and she's asking about, did you know the family? Did you know Samara? I think there's something in there where she says, yeah, they'd always wanted children because she had, countless miscarriages, and then they went away, and then when they came back, they had a daughter.
There's that hint, yeah.
And so,
Yep.
They don't outright say it.
yeah, so they never outright say it. So, is this an alien? Is this a demon?
No. It's just the case
that's open.
No. It's just a case that adoption is bad.
That's the lesson that we're taking away from this.
That's the lesson. Don't you be adopting those Japanese kids.
Ugh, never. I tell you what, simple white women in America love the fact that, hey, this is a really easy Halloween costume. Let me go put on some sort of white frock. Let me push all my hair forward and put some gel in it. It's the easiest Halloween costume for a basic white woman.
Goblin be thine.
Goblin be thine.
Henrik, you mentioned the tuberculosis angle of the book, and in the Verbinski version, when Naomi Watts, her character, goes to investigate Rachel, there's this line from the lady: "If you catch a cold, it's everybody's cold." And is it after this line that Rachel goes like, "No offense, man, but what the hell does that mean?" Kind of love that anyway.
I think so. I think so.
So what the hell does that mean? Because I always found this notion kind of puzzling, and it seems to be a reference to how a sickness spreads, maybe in the way of information. And what Samara is doing here, she gets her kicks out of sharing the videotape. If you fail to share this videotape, you're doing it wrong, and Samara will kill you. So she's a virus. She's the COVID freaking O2.
She very much is.
And it could also be seen as a reference to the way that we spread information, like sickness in this day and age. Sickness, which is also a word they use for Samara to describe her, or at least the animals.
Well, since you brought up that whole point about technology, I kind of see it in the same way, especially in the original works, like the novel and the original Japanese version Ringu. The novel came out 91 originally. So it came on the late end of the VHS craze, just before the whole world switched gears and turned into DVD. And kind of what I see in the original Japanese text is a certain type of condemnation towards, well, essentially technology. The major point of the story is the VHS tape, which originally, when it came out in 1980s, it was a game changer, technologically wise, in a way how societies were able to consume and product culture. You no longer had to watch go to movies to see the films. You could just watch them at your own time, at your own leisure, in your own home from a VHS tapes. And it also made production of media that much more simpler and also less expensive. We all of a sudden, thanks to VHS, we had the boom of these straight to VHS films that were basically anyone could make one. It was that cheap and that easy.
You could also say that, yeah, when VHS tapes started to get popular, that's when people started to consume content. But it's now more popularized after Netflix and such, that you are watching content, not so much movies, but different kinds of content. And where I feel that the Hollywood or the movie industry has become this mass production house of stuff that you don't 99% need. But yeah, it's just more of a business than artistic endeavor.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the content, that's actually what you're dealing with the original film tape in Ringu universe. It's not a movie. Every single film, especially Korvis Verbinski's film, makes the point that it's not a movie. It looks like some edgy student film material. It's very much content that has been easily produced by Sadako's or Samara's ghost, or in the novel, the tuberculosis virus, and that can easily be transmitted and transferred into the society to be kind of consumed, where it slowly carves its way, very much like a virus. And something that happens in both of them, perhaps most noticeable, the biggest Japanese horror movie franchises, The Ring and Ju-on, is that there is a force that forces a violent change to the society. they in both cases there's some kind of a dark entity or force that spreads like a disease and just eats more space. This is especially prominent in Ju-on, where or the Crutch, where the original film kind of ends on this doomsday note, where the curse just keeps on spreading and more people just constantly keep on dying from the curse, and it will never end. Basically, before the curse has consumed absolutely everyone. And the Ring has the similar point, because everybody has to make a copy of the film, and everybody has to show it to someone else. So unless somebody plays, fast and loose with the tape, makes a copy and shows it to someone else, and then just quickly, destroys the copy, dooming that person to die. If that doesn't happen, then also in Ring universe, the tape will just, keep on spreading.
I would like to see the 100th generation copy of that tape and see how viewable it is. Thank God for VHS technology.
The tracking on that tape would be shot to hell.
Right. Would be some kind of a black lines just running through. I'm happy that Samara changed to digital in the sequels. So, I mean, good for her. Good for her.
She's embracing the changing world and the proliferation of advanced technology. And, there's a lot of older folks that can't even text. And here she is jumping from VHS to DVD and digital. Bully for her.
Totally.
But she's the only one who is actually embracing, the change in the story, because much in the same way as you can kind of see the Ring story as a condemnation of a technological change, you can also see it as a condemnation of the way how technology changes the society. And this is, in my opinion, the case very much in Ringu, where we all have the image of a traditional, quote-unquote traditional Japanese household, where there are several generations living under the same room. You have the kids, the parents, the grandparents, they all share the space. But Ringu makes a large notion on the point that that traditional family does not exist in Reiko's household. She is, as the story starts, she's a single mother who has broken up with her husband, and also the grandparents just believe they live somewhere in some place. And once she comes into contact with that videotape, the only way how she can actually fight her way out of the curse and from dying in course of 7 days is by basically reversing her social status, leaving her status as a single mom behind and reconnecting with her ex-husband. From this point onwards, the husband actually becomes the major player in the story, who is the character who makes most of the notions or drives the investigation most forward. Reiko herself becomes less capable and more hysterical, and once or twice even, threatens to quit the investigation while it's still going on, and she herself is under the death spell, or at least believes she is. Yes. And she also has to reconnect with her grandparents in order to, get someone to look after her son so that she can run around to do the whole cursed videotape investigations.
And when it comes to American, about the family dynamics, because for both Samara and Aiden, they are both dysfunctional a bit. Like Rachel doesn't wash her child out with the well water, so to speak. But it's not surprising that Aiden has grown to be so independent and serious as he is portrayed right off the gate. And Rachel is this busy woman reporter, often away from home. And therefore, Aiden and Samara are connected a bit, and Rachel and Samara's mother or foster mother have some parallel qualities. And notably, Aidan calls his mom Rachel, which first made me think that she is a foster parent, but she's not. So it's either they have a little bit of a broken relationship, or it's just what the movie wants to hint without there being any of such thing.
Yeah, the movie kind of mirrors that there's a mirroring dynamic between Rachel and her kid and Samara and her stepmom, where Samara's stepmom is someone who hasn't had the opportunity to have a child, even though she really had wanted one, finally has her wish granted, and then comes to regret that wish. And Rachel, on the other hand, is someone who has a kid, but takes her kid kinda as a granted.
Yeah, it seems that Rachel and the guy, forgot his name. The guy and the Rachel seem to have a warmer relationship going as the story goes on.
Yeah, I had never thought of that point until you just brought it up just now. I think that's a really interesting character arc for Rachel. She, I don't think that she feels no love for her son, but it's not the I think the typical mother son relationship. At some point, it's mentioned that her and whatever Martin Henderson's character's name is, Noah, that her and Noah had Aiden when they were very young. So potentially maybe 17, 18, maybe they were still in high school. Obviously, it didn't work out between the two of them, and they didn't stay married. And so she's got this sort of broken relationship with her son. Meanwhile, she's investigating this relationship between a mother and a daughter, where all this mother wanted was to have a child, and then she finally got one, and all hell broke loose. And then by the end of the film, she, I think, has this sort of renewed relationship with Aiden, where she sort of realizes what the role of the mother is supposed to be, and how grateful she should be to have this amazing, bright, independent child. I had not even thought about that. Thanks, guys. Bringing some character arcs.
There you go.
And can I just say too, speaking of since we're talking about the relationship, I think one thing that I remembered even from the first time I saw this was when Aiden watches the tape and the phone rings and she like picks it up and puts it down, and the phone rings again, and this time it's Noah, and she screams in the phone, "Leave us alone." And then he's like, "Oh, Rachel, it's me." And then she says, "He watched the tape. Our son watched the tape." What a beautiful way to reveal who this man is and the relationship between all of them. Because before that, we didn't know really who he was. Maybe it was hinted at a little here and a little there, but I thought it was a beautiful way to really reveal it.
I thought the same thing when I was watching it. Also, this way of keeping some gates open for imagination in the Verbinski version. It happens less in the Ringu version, where everything is outright explained. Well, not everything, but especially in the Korean version, where the doctor just suddenly goes somehow into this conclusion that yeah, it's a cursed VHS tape, and it's looked through the eyes of some kind of a witch. And yeah, I'm totally on board with you, lady.
Oh, that was so terrible.
Yeah, because the woman blinks 17 times in a minute or whatever the hell was.
Yeah, whatever the hell that was.
Right.
The tape, I think, since, again, I'm going to just keep latching on to things you bring up. How do you guys feel about the actual tape? The tape within the tape from all three versions?
Well, when it comes to the Korean version, the tape is by far the worst. Like, this may be subjective, but it has none of that attempt of a psychological overload in its imagery that the American Ring is kind of famous for. For example, the spinning ladder, because ladders are tied to occult or superstitious beliefs, and I didn't find really anything such here. Maybe I'm wrong, but that video in the American version, that overloads kind of the audience with so many concepts. It adds a lot of the creep factor that way. You can't process the images because they come with such of a pace and the great sounds in the tape. That's why it's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very grating,
Yeah.
the sounds.
And especially,
I'm
yeah.
with Karri here on the tape question. The South Korean
Oh,
one most definitely is the worst one of the tapes. I did like quite a lot the Korverbinski's tape, even though I am with Noah on the assessment that it looks extremely lot like an edgy student film.
yeah.
But I felt that it worked pretty much simply because as Kari put it, it kind of overloads you with concepts and images and sounds. The Japanese one is okay. I never really. People often remark how it is super abstract and because of that super tense and scary. I never really felt that except in two shots. The first one, which is where the people are crawling on the ground backwards, and the second one would be the image of the man with a towel on his head. And outside of that,
Yeah.
the Japanese, it never has had that big of an effect on me.
Yeah, I feel that the American version takes a lot of the concepts of that and then yet again improves on them. And this is why I said that it's kind of unfair to also compare this because, yeah, you make one thing and then another guy says, oh, well, maybe we could improve on that. And it often doesn't work with the remakes, but somehow here they make it work. I like the part about, isn't it like this that in the Ringu video, when Sadako appears in the mirror, that mirror is now on the right side of the screen. But on the Verbinski version, Samara appears on the left side. And I felt that maybe that's a nice psychological addition, that it's not on the kind of comfortable side, the correct side of the screen. It's where it shouldn't be, right? In a golden ratio sense, maybe.
Interesting idea.
What's the most horrifying element in these videos for you guys?
There's the shot of all the maggots, of all the people swimming, which turns into maggots. That sort of sends a chill up my spine.
Something like that happens, yeah. There's something about that long-haired girl who stares you from a teleporting mirror or whatever it is, and levitates backwards in the Verbinski version. I love that. I love that. And while she does that, she is on the kind of wrong side of the frame, as I said, and that is the most unsettling image of the film for me. Overall, The Ring is not so horrific. It's got more like a mystery thriller, and I have no problem with that because it kind of also improves the whole story around The Ring. It has a lot of story to tell, investigating the whole story with Rachel, going through the archives and newspapers clippings, and the audience is with you. Like, I like that.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting change to a traditional quote unquote horror film, where in this film, because you're right, it's not a horror film, it's a mystery thriller, where and because typically in a horror film, your protagonist, things are happening to him or her, and they're the victim of all these things that continue to happen to them. Whereas this, the protagonist is the doer. They're proactively seeking out. She is out there trying to solve this mystery. She's going to places. She's talking to people. She's trying to figure out what happened, which I think is a nice sort of flip on a traditional horror film.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I kind of would argue against you on that notion. Not in the sense that this wouldn't have the investigatory element, but I often feel that a lot of horrors actually do lean on having some type of investigation plotline in them. Of course it feeds into what type of horror films you check out. Like for example,
True.
Friday the 13th. No investigation plot lines in them whatsoever. None at all. The entire
Yeah,
franchise,
they're just
none.
victims.
They are just victims. But then again, for example, there's a fair number of on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise where yeah they still are very much victims, but there are characters who still try to do an investigation and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in every single one of the Nightmare sequels, but I would say it does happen quite constantly.
Yeah, well, we just said that The Ring is more of a mystery thriller, but I'm gonna say about the Korean version that its biggest sin is still that it just isn't scary, or for that matter, interesting. There are these spooky moments that come out of nowhere, and you aren't prepared to be scared. They just are there, and the imagery is not so interesting. And even when this antagonist, whatever was the name of Sadako in this movie, she comes through the TV, and the choice of angle looks a bit static. Like, is it just a smart artistic decision, TV and static? Get it? But yeah, it looks as if they chose that angle to for technical reasons, some technical limitations. It's shot in a bright room, directly in front of the TV, no shadows or no anything obscuring anything. That was kind of bizarre. Overall, I feel more satisfied when watching the cinematography of Virus compared to Ringu. We have close-ups finally, we have some dollies and livelier characters than in Ringu, but then the script is poorly paced and they go through this scary tape over and over and over, and it's somewhere around the 45 minutes mark when the doctor doesn't reaches this abysmal conclusion that okay, yeah, let's go to the deep well end. And
Yeah, the ring virus is kinda curious mess. It's very much in a between points of different things. Cinematography wise, it's in between of Verbinski's very much MTV era esque filmmaking and the kind of dreary Japanese film style. It's somewhere between. And story wise, it's between, well, the story of the novel, but then, or it starts to follow the story of the novel, but then in some major plot points, it kind of chickens out and opts out instead to go with the storyline from Ringu. And therefore, it kind of also lands into between point in plotline wise, which does lead into a fair amount of confusion, especially when you reach like the last third of the film, where
right.
the characters are able to make deductions from individual elements that they just find. The biggest one, in my opinion, on this front would be that war size drawing or painting of the South Korean Sadako. They just find it and they immediately deduce that, aha, this guy must be the painter. They go to the painter and they immediately kind of get from him the whole, yeah, I raped the bitch background, and from there they just deduce the location of the well.
And the biggest frustration point may be that there is no chemistry between these two characters, and somehow it's by design, but I don't know if it's the book to blame or that they didn't then alter it. I don't know, but it provides nothing to the audience, these two guys together.
Yeah, it's a complete dead zone. Originally, the book, once again, if I remember correctly, the reporter and the doctor, they were supposed to be old friends. Like they knew each other before the story really happens. That's something that most definitely is not the case in the Ring virus, where they never seen each other before. The reporter just finds out or hears a rumor that hey, there is this doctor guy who once had a prominent career but now is labeled as a basket case because he believes in these supernatural shenanigans and goes to meet the doctor, who is immediately a major class asshole.
Yeah. Okay, maybe a little bit about the sequels quickly if we have time. Well, yeah, as stated, Rasen is the unfortunate bastard child sequel that everybody wants to forget. And it's a mess. Ringu 2, the sequel gonna carries on from the original, somehow also kills Reiko. Spoilers. It really wants to get rid of Reiko in both Rasen and Ringu 2. So there was basically an explosion in 98 and 99 of not only the Ring films, there was also 2 TV series in Japan, which I haven't seen. And after the American versions, there's now been kind of a comeback of Sadako in Japan. There is Sadako 3D, there is Sadako 3D 2, and what else? And the latest, I believe, is the Sadako, titled only Sadako. And then in between somewhere there is Sadako versus the Chuon character. Apologies for not having this on my notes, but yes.
Yeah, when it comes to the sequels, or does Zach wanna... This is gonna be a long one from me, so if Zach has something he wants to say, now's a good time before I start my rant.
Proceed with thy rant.
Okay, thank you very much, my good sir. When it comes to the sequels, it kind of reaches an complete clusterfuck the further down the pipeline we go. And I kind of see the change in technology to be blamed for this. Ring originally, like the main story, the one that we have today been covering, I do feel that it's very much a story that might not last the test of time because it's so heavily kind of leans on the technology at play. It leans on the VHS tape. The VHS tape is like a major part of the aesthetic.
True.
Of the Ring films. Just like is the kind of the snowy static that you get from the TV screens, or did get from the TV screens. You can't get it anymore with a modern TV. Our today's version of static is nothing more than a text, no signal. And the VHS tapes have been transformed into DVDs, live streaming, Blu-rays. And because of that, I do kind of feel that you, me, Zach, we might be kind of the peak generation for Ring, the original Ring story. We still remember VHS. We have memories about the old TV sets. We know what the hell that snowy static actually is. But I would say today's children will grow up in a society where the technology is so advanced that when they are at their 20s and they check out the Ring for the first time, they are not most likely gonna understand what the hell is VHS. And why is there that grainy static on TV screen? Why doesn't it just say signal loss? And why the picture quality is so shit? And the audio is completely terrible. Like, what is this? Why? And the sequels kind of try to course correct it.
Yeah.
Like, the driving motif in the sequels is that somehow Sadako has to be gotten out of the VHS realm, and it goes batshit bonkers with it. Like, the third one in the series, the prequel to Ring Zero Birthday, if I remember correctly, that has like a evil clone of Sadako. It's either evil twin or evil clone, but there's like a good and bad Sadako. Then there's the latest American version, Rings, which tries to play the whole plotline that, well, now finally somebody has to digitalize the VHS tape. And I felt that a huge part of the scary aesthetic was immediately lost, since we were now dealing with .hvi file. And the one of the latest one is in Japanese territory is Sadako versus Yuon.
Sadako versus Kayako. Yeah.
Yeah, Sadako versus Kayako, which concludes into the two coming together and fusing into Sayako, which now once again is a creepy ghost killer who doesn't have to lean on the whole VHS thing to move around. Or that's at least what I think they are gonna go with that line.
I kept wondering in Rings if you get bonus points from Samara if you make 10,000 digital copies of the movie, or if you share it on Facebook. Is that good enough?
Yeah, or if you put it up as a torrent, does anyone who downloads the torrent file from you, do they count as a people who you have spread the tape?
Yeah, guys, VHS master race. Just stick with that.
What about converting it to Laserdisc? Does that count?
Don't. Don't.
I don't know. When Karri Verbinski's film came out, it was shortly after when I found out the Ring fanfic section of the internet. And one of the very first gimmicks that the fanfic writers utilized was the idea of somebody digitalizing the videotape. And usually this played out with the idea that I found the videotape and I went mad from seeing it and from the impending doom that it brought upon me. So I digitalized it and I put it up on the torrent network, but I renamed it to be porn. So now there's a like a fake file which promises you hot teen sluts XXX on beach, but if you download it, it's actually the cursed Ring video. And I even back then, like back in to the 90s, I kind of felt that even though the idea is kind of clever and intriguing, it still lost something. Like it didn't feel nearly as effective to me since the material was not on a VHS tape.
Yeah, this might be the only time that I'm going to defend VHS here and just say that in a VHS form it looks more organic and it just loses that when there is none of those frame drops. And well, I guess it could be argued that it's more digital what Samara is doing with this frame dropping teleportation powers when she kills the guy in the ring. But I like that added effect because in the original Ringu she didn't do that. She becomes much creepier with this added static effect and the teleportation. What was your favorite Sadako, Samara? I'd say Samara.
I'm torn. I like Verbinski's. I like the actress that plays Samara, Devi Chase, I believe is her name. But I'm also a big fan of Duna Bay, who I did not realize was in this film, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden I get to that part where you see her face, and I'm like, holy shit, it's Duna Bay! But she's done a lot of the Wachowski sisters stuff. So she was in Cloud Atlas, she's in Sense8, she's, I believe, going to be in the new Matrix Part 4. She's pretty fantastic. So I just like her as an actress, just in general, even though we didn't get to really see very much from her.
Yeah. Okay, anything in your notes that you still want to quickly mention before quickies?
Not on my end. I've ranted everything.
I have a bone to pick.
Go ahead.
Here's my bone. So you watch this tape, and then you're gonna die 7 days later.
7 days.
There's two things. 7 days. Two things about it that I don't get. One is in the opening scenes for all of these, it's usually these two girls having a little sleepover, and they're sort of joking around, and one's like, "Oh, have you heard about this tape? Yeah, like, oh my god, like you totally watch it and then you die 7 days later." I don't know why I gave them a California Valley accent, but and then one of them's like, "Oh my god, no, like I saw it, no," and they're really freaked out, and then they sort of like joke about it, and then something happens where they then turn really serious again. I'm like, wait. So did you really see this tape or didn't you? Because the fact that you keep going back and forth between being like freaked out and then you're like joking and you're like, oh my god, yeah. So Billy and I, we went to the mountains and we totally did it. We totally had sex. Oh my god. Like, wait, are you scared for your life right now or not? Because I'm a little confused by this.
Right.
So that's one bone I'm gonna pick, and then my other bone that I'm gonna pick is. We follow Rachel and we follow these other women as these main characters who are experiencing some weird shit as their week progresses. To me, one of the most visceral things is Rachel choking on a glass of water, and then she is full-fisted pulling out these electrodes from her throat. By the way, I don't know how they did that, but holy shit, that was very effective. Okay, so that to me would be a very scarring thing, and I would be like, oh my god, yeah, like there's some fucked up shit going on. We got to figure out what's going on. But it seems like this did not happen to the girl at the very beginning, because she's just sitting there having a sleepover with her girlfriend and talking about, what do you want to watch on TV? And oh yeah, we went to the mountains with my boyfriend. Like, have you not been choking up electrodes? Have you not been seeing creepy images? Have you not had the week from hell? You should have like circles around your eyes from not sleeping for the past 7 days. So apparently that only happened to Rachel, I guess, or to these main characters. So the inconsistency is a bone I have to pick.
Yeah, she was just an airheaded teenager.
Yeah.
She forgot the whole I was puking out electrodes just a couple of days ago thing.
Or it was just that, well, she didn't realize anything was wrong because she already was choking on a lot of hair on that little trip of hers.
She's a good girl. She did not. She's a good girl. And then my final bone, and then I'll shut up. I'm glad that we have progressed from the 90s, or when did the book come out? Was that the 80s?
91.
The book came out? Oh, 91. I think we've progressed a lot. So I do have to say, having your main villain, this source of fear and this thing that's very different, being a person who is intersex, I think is problematic. So I do like the fact that at least in the sequels and the American remakes, we'll just take that part out, so that we're not sort of vilifying people who have different biological physiology. So that'll be my last bone I'll pick.
Second,
Yeah.
Second, the story tries to save this plot point by having the doctor make a note that, like in the Big Bang, when the dark and light were one, perhaps in some early stages of humanity, man and woman was a single organism, a perfect organism.
I just kept wondering how Rob Zombie would have directed this intro part anyway, of The Ring. Like, would it have been going like, oh my god, you just totally did it, you fucking hooker, son of a bitching, tit-sucking asshole. All kinds of dirty words coming out.
Oh, that was a great accent, by the way. Love it. Oh my god, Rob Zombie's version.
The Halloween remakes were pretty good.
The Rob Zombie Halloween 2, which you, by the way, gave a recommendation.
I still do. I still do. It's realistic dialogue. I don't know what you are bitching about.
Okay, special mention for an actor goes to, with no surprises here, Naomi Watts on my end.
I'll second the motion.
I'm quite torn between Naomi Watts and Hiroki Sanada, who played the psychic ex-husband in Ringu.
Okay.
But I don't know. Perhaps it's because I believe that I will run into Sanada some later episode in some foreseen future, or perhaps it's just that I first experienced Naomi Watch. Perhaps it's the fact that I've kind of liked Naomi Watch's horror film run. But like the films are quite the dog shit, but Naomi Watch is good. But yeah, I third the notion.
And yeah, he has been an internationally successful actor as far as I know. This, you said Sanada,
Yeah.
right? Is there some small role, any role that you found somehow worth highlighting for whatever reason could be? Therefore, like a half a second, great, horrible, or fun or odd performance of any kind. Well, when Rachel goes to investigate the video and takes a print screen, there's this lady who is being totally bitchy towards her. I don't know why, but yeah, that's what the script is doing. Like, oh, you want to watch it alone? Okay, whatever. So
Her character's name is Donna, and the actress is Stephanie Erb. I looked it up because I also thought she was fantastic.
yeah, she's fantastic in portraying her as the kind of a weirdo who wants to see all people's private videos.
This might very much just be my over-encompassing love towards children, but I just kind of really wanted to strangle David Dorfman, who played Aiden in Verbinski
Wow,
version.
why is that?
I don't know, maybe it's just that I kind of just found the whole creepy kid, stinge kind of aggravating. I don't know, I can't like name the single thing why, but when Rachel at the end of the film is able to save her son from Samara, I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's fantastic, great, good. I really was hoping that the kid makes it.
There's definitely an attempt to make Aiden creepy and some kind of a parallel to Samara.
Yeah, I'll say. Well, I'll say a little something about David Dorfman, then I'll get to my answer. But David Dorfman, by the way, who I looked up because I was like, hey, has this kid done anything since then? Get ready for an update that you're not going to believe. So he only acted for a couple of years. He soon left the acting world, but he was admitted to UCLA at 13 years old. He was admitted to UCLA,
I'm not surprised.
and then he graduated with a perfect GPA,
Jesus.
and uh, and graduated as valedictorian with a perfect GPA, and then got admitted to Harvard Law School at 18 years old.
Jesus.
Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, he's incredible. And now he's like out there doing all kinds of. Let's see, he currently serves as legal counsel for the U.S. House of Representatives, ranking member of Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Asia, and works for nonprofits to like secure democracy around the world. He's out there doing the Lord's work.
Holy shit.
Props.
I have to give it to the man. My hat's off. He sounds really good guy. Tremendous character. Still wanted to strangle him as a child, but I'm really happy that he made it through the Ring film, and me, and now is a grown up.
I felt that for a kid performance, this was once again excellent and a fantastic choice for a character who's supposed to be a little older than his age in behavior.
It's not a bad performance. I think I feel that I have to
Yeah.
stress that one.
I got
My quote unquote hate towards him as a kid in Verbinski's The Ring. It's not due to his performance. There's just something that I found quite aggravating, and I can't name it. But since he now has a law degree, when this podcast gets hit by a copyright strike and Karri is taken off the air, we kind of can already suspect who is behind all that shit.
All right, what resonated with you the most in these films? It's kind of hard to name it, but definitely just the character of Sadako Samara is an important one in horror history. That maybe needs more more props than it might get in the film history.
To me, kind of the unifying aspect was the investigation and the investigative element that the film, all these films have, but which is mostly carried on its shoulders by Verbinski's remake.
In one adjective, how would you describe these films?
I said foreboding.
Does static sound weird? I'll go with static.
And I pick Doom-like.
Did you pick any favorite quotes? We can go over this if there's nothing.
Frolic and brine, goblins be thine.
I almost took that one. Mine is also from Ringu. My dad's fat, so is my mom. So I'm fat too.
That's just kind of
Nice.
fat shaming. Nice going, kid.
They are body positive. Should be re-edited.
They are everything except body positive. Or at least that goddamn kid is everything but body positive.
Would you consider to watch the Ring films again? How's the rewatchability here?
I say yes to Ringu and Verbinski's version. When it comes to the South Korean one, I do own it as a DVD. It is in my collection. I've seen it now twice. This is my second viewing of the film, and there's been like years between the first and the second time. I have returned back to Ringu and Verbinski's film on occasion, but I haven't returned to the Ring virus until now that I had to do it. And I kind of have the inkling that I won't be returning to the film for the third time unless once again there is a situation that calls for it.
I will happily return to the Ring American version. I've seen it a lot of times, so not in the near future, but yes, this is a movie that is good. Ringo, I always have this kind of a disconnect with this the whole style of the film, so maybe not. And the Korean version just got everything wrong, so no.
Yeah, I would say if there were any of them that were definitely rewatchable, it's Verbinski's. And I say that only because I did rewatch it on my own about a month ago before I knew we were going to be talking about it. And was very surprised at how well it held up. The other two, not as much.
Yeah, true. My appreciation for the American also rose a lot during the research phase here. Well, would you recommend these films? I guess that was already answered. So yeah, I would recommend the American and skip the rest.
Same.
I would still extend a recommendation to Ringu.
Yeah, there's some good-looking cinematography to be found in the original Ringu, but yeah, like you said, Henrik, it looks like well, no, you said it about the actual scary movie from the Ring, but for me, Ringu looks like a student film often with framing which is so uninspiring and flat that the film must have been driven over with a steamroller just to make sure that it's as flat as possible. And sometimes you don't even know who is the subject in the frame. I would like to just go on a little rant on this, because when Reiko goes to talk to the students in the funeral, and then the camera tracks towards the students, who are we supposed to be looking at here? Okay, the one that speaks the most of the students is in the bang-on center, but we have a lot of noise here. The background is full of asymmetrical noise and similar colors to the foreground, so I feel it's just a lazy angle, as an example only. And some of the choices, they can feel somewhat forced on by the location and the budget, but most of the dullness I found was avoidable. And the characters that are blocking the doorways even. The kid is in front of the doorway, where the empty space should be. left for that foreboding effect or somebody being out of focus in the background, which The Ring does at least 3 times, and it works for a great effect. And it's not even trying the Ringu to do that. Why? Just Verbinski's doing all the right moves here. Well, order of preference for the movies. The Ring, Ringu, and Virus for me.
I would say The Ring, Ringu, The Ring Recut, and then The Ring Virus. And if you don't know about The Ring Recut, I highly recommend it. You can find it on YouTube if you just type in The Ring Recut. It is a trailer for the Verbinski ring, but recut to make it look like it's a beautiful romantic tearjerker drama. And it is
Gotta see that.
amazing. It is amazing.
So gonna check that out.
On my end, also, as a no surprise to anyone, my lineup is Verbinski's version, then the original, and the South Korean as a third, simply on the virtue that it's on the list.
Yeah. You really know you're watching the Ring films when... ...
You really know you're watching the Ring films when the tracking markers on your TV are shot to hell.
You really know you're watching the Ring films when... My wife was not supposed to have a child!
Oh, God.
You really know you're watching the Ring films when you are trying desperately to get your shitty ass student film edginess past your professor, and in the last ditch attempt, since nothing else seems to work, you make the case that no, I actually found this and it is supposed to be super deadly little videotape.
Alright. Dear listener, would you recommend the films? Come and comment on our socialistic media pages.
Or, come tell us exactly why we should be taken off the air, saying exactly how much shit we gave to the original Japanese version.
Yeah, we didn't get any bad feedback from the cuties, so I guess now it's time when we're touching on this touchy topic. So is there anything else you want to add, or is it time to close the lab?
I think we got it all out there. I think we can hang up our lab coats.
So, you can find us on social media, on Facebook as the Flick Lab Podcast, or on Twitter, Flick Lab is our handle, on Instagram as the Flick Lab, and on LinkedIn, and yeah, you'll find us. You can follow me on Twitter if you can type correctly. Respect, mad respect.
You can follow me on Twitter at ZacharyPen48.
And you can follow me in your mom's bedroom.
You can also check us out on the theflicklab.com webpage. Our theme music was created by master on the guitar Nick Grivell. An episode edited by me, as per usual. In our next episode, we'll be discussing Mars and how it's portrayed in cinema over the last 100 years or so.
You mean the candy bar, right?
The subtle change from milk chocolate to dark chocolate was revolutionary.
So in the next episode, we will run through the history of the Mars-related movies, but we will concentrate on, first, A Trip to Mars, US version short film. Then we will move on to, yes, again, A Trip to Mars, now from Denmark from 1918. Those are my films. Then Henrik will give us an overview of Elita from 1922, a Russian Mars-related film. Then what is Zach doing?
I'll be hitting up the original War of the Worlds, done in America in 1953.
Whereas I will be looking at The Angry Red Planet 1959 from the US, followed by Santa Claus Conquers the Martians from 1965. I'm really shocked and amazed that Henrik didn't pick this one.
And then I'll be doing the American film Mission to Mars, done in 2000.
And then Red Planet 2000, done by Henrik. Then Stranded 2001, I will go through it. And then Zach is gonna go through the remake of War of the Worlds, right?
Yes, the Tom Cruise Spielberg version.
From 2005. And then we check out Christmas on Mars 2008. I will give you an overview, and then Henrik will look at The Martian, the most famous film out of the Mars-related movies for sure, from 2015. And finishing off with
The Space Between Us from 2017, starring a Mr. Asa Butterfield.
looking forward to that. Alright,
Holy shit, that's a lot of film.
holy shit indeed. And yes, we're not gonna watch the same movies now. There's gonna be a bunch of films that we're gonna look on our own in an effort that we will give in a timely fashion an episode about the whole history of Martian-related movies. So this is quite of an experiment. Hopefully you guys will like this. And yeah, we'll see what kind of a havoc we'll have for next time.
Until then.
Later.
Stock footage of, I don't know, Karelian pie and green balls. Yeah, I live in the forest. Yep.
Is somebody playing some audios at the background?
Could be.
Yeah.